Welcome to Save As Ability, a podcast to educate and inform you about disability employment issues. My name is David D'Arcangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Save As Ability. It's David D'Arcangelo, and we're doing a two-part episode today, and this is a little bit in honor of October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or ND. And there's, a couple of things that I'm going to be doing and Archangel Communications is going to be doing around it. So, we keep revisiting the same thing. As you know, our main theme here is disability employment. And we believe employment is really vital to working age individuals because for several reasons, but it helps bring independence, self-determination, dignity, right? All good things, I think. And society benefits, the individual benefit, everybody benefits when it's done well. So really, I think we're kind of revisiting a couple of themes here in honor of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is October. So again, a two-part episode. The first question we're going to ask here, we're going to ask two questions. The first one is, has government intervention helped or hurt working age people with disabilities? And we're going to go through that. Okay, so we'll start here with that. And the case can be made both ways, right? As you know, I'm a data-driven person. So to me, let's look at the data. The data is clear, okay? These are 2024 numbers, and we're using the data from a combination of sources, the Bureau of Labor Statistics directly, and then the American Community Survey indirectly by using the folks at NTIDE and the Kessler Foundation and, Disability Statistics Compendium, and all very good, reliable source of data, okay? And that indicates that as of 2024, which is the latest data we have, only around 37.4% of working age people with disabilities are employed, which means somewhere between 62, 65% were not employed, okay? And particularly then when you include the people who are, because those are people who are not also in the labor force. When you then include the people that are unemployed as well, actually the number even rises even further, okay? So among all people with disabilities age 16 and over, about 75% were not in the labor force at all right? Now, I like to include that because the working age is generally between that 16 to 64, but we know that people are working longer as they age. So many people are working full-time into their 70s, even longer, okay? So that's why I include that metric as well. Now, what ends up happening as a result of that is because people are not earning their own wage. They're getting their incomes oftentimes through the major public benefit programs. Then poverty rises. And the data point on that is, as of 2022, approximately 24.9% of people with disabilities age 18 to 64, because it's coming from another survey. So it's not 16 to 64, but it's not, it's comparable, I guess. Approximately 25% of those people were living in poverty compared to about 10% of non-disabled peers, okay? And that's terrible. I mean, that's a travesty. Like, what are we doing here? We can do better. So this means that roughly 1 in 4 working age adults with disabilities is at or below the poverty line. And I would say a large amount of that is attributed to, or can be attributed to, the labor force participation and the unemployment rate that we just mentioned. So, the track record of intervention, particularly with the federal government, right? There is some state government stuff here where state government could be probably better, but much of it flows from the federal government. Those are the really large outlays and, the interventions that are done through, whether it's the ADA, the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, or the Rehab Act, or SSI, Social Security. Any of those big, large programs are driven by federal spending predominantly. Okay, yeah, sure, it goes down to the states with Medicare or with housing, things like that, even some cash payments. But for the most part, the main driver is the federal government, okay? So, well, what are the good things? You know us here at Save As Ability. We're positive and we're balanced, right? So there's many good things that came off of government intervention on the federal level. okay? Particularly civil rights protections, like in the ADA. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservative, everybody agrees that non-discrimination is the way to go. We don't want to discriminate against anybody for any reason, their race, their gender, their disability status, okay? So the ADA is really important, landmark civil rights, great. Everybody agrees. The Rehabilitation Act before it, great. Everybody agrees. So, in terms of intervention on that level, that's good. I think everybody agrees. Like, that's a role of government to set fair rules that everybody has to, live by. However, let's look at the other side. And that is, like, some of these programs disincentivize work, and they've really ended up hurting people with disabilities. They create these benefit cliffs, both for the cash benefits and for the housing benefits and for the medical coverage, So despite the fact that billions, hundreds of billions, if you want to add it all up, has been spent on these federally funded programs, the return on investment is just, it's really not there. Particularly like when you look at the federally funded workforce programs that are like, the participation rates alone speak to that. We just went over it. You've got 2/3 of all working age people with disabilities not in the labor force. And then you add in the unemployed, you get 70% of working age people with disabilities that are not employed. I mean, if these programs were working, you wouldn't have that. Okay. So unfortunately, much of it has been stagnant. We know from our good friends over at Entide that, we follow the first Friday of every month. They come out with the employment situation for people with disabilities using the Department of Labor data. And there has been some improvement. Okay. And that's good. But the chasm still remains. It's not a gap. It is a huge chasm. All right. So the net effect is that these numbers speak for themselves, and they speak clearly, unfortunately, that 50 years of layered government intervention, and really what it's led for the overwhelming majority of people with disabilities, is that they remain unemployed. They remained not participating. They're likely to be poor. They're likely to be in poverty, like that we talked about, or near the poverty level. Like the 25% that we named, that's like, at or below the poverty level. If you go to like 200% of the poverty level, which by the way is still like, I think it's like $40,000 a year in most states, because it does vary from state to state. That's still like now all of a sudden you're including like 50% of all working age people with disabilities. So, this is not good for the independence and self-determination or the dignity of our Americans with disabilities. What are we doing? We've got to fix this. What I'm proposing is more market-driven solutions. Let's get rid of bureaucracy. Let's reduce regulations. Let's open this up to the private sector. I'll give you an example. We're paying, as a former state director of vocational rehabilitation for Massachusetts, the federal government is paying government workers to go out and get jobs for these people with disabilities. Well, why can't we incentivize it so that the private sector can do that? The money is there. I bet you dollars to donuts, the private sector would get better results than the 70% that we just talked about. So, challenges remain. And in part 2 of this episode, we're going to talk about some of the things that I think can really improve this. So, the challenges are real. I've experienced them myself, personally, for myself, for my family, for my friends, people that I know, but then professionally as an administrator being in these programs, working with regulations on the local, state, and federal level, and we can do better. These programs are old. They're outdated. They need to be modernized, and we need to inject new energy. We don't need to spend more. We're spending so much now, and it's not working. We just need to do it differently. All right. And that's what part 2 is. So stay tuned for part 2. David D'Arcangelo, another episode of Save Visibility. I hope you have a great day. For more information about disability employment issues, please visit our website, disabilityemploymentsolutions.com. The Save As Ability podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel at Disability Policy Expert, or wherever you stream your podcasts.
subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment. Save As Ability lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. #TheNewRadio. Again, my name is David Darkangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Until next time, thank you. I hope you have a great day.